Hi, my name is Hannah Riedl and I work for the Montana Department of Environmental Quality. For this reporting session, I thought I would talk about how our Nonpoint source program has been submitting our annual reports to EPA and kind of the direction we're headed with that. So I think the title of my talk, if it doesn't make sense to you now, will make more sense by the end, but spoiler alert, we've gone to a paperless system. So before I dive in, I just want to cover, what's required to be in these Nonpoint source program annual reports. And this quote on the screen comes from EPA's 2013 guidelines on this topic. And it's really just these two components that need to be in the annual report, which is progress towards meeting a schedule of milestones that are contained in the Nonpoint source program management plan, and report on the load reductions achieved by water quality improvement activities. So definitely some requirements about what needs to be in there, but not much detail in terms of how those two components are reported. So I'm going to walk you through this evolution of Montana's Nonpoint source program annual reports, and we'll go way back to the year 2000. Here's the cover page of that year's annual report. It was compiled in Word. It's pretty simple and straightforward, 22 pages of text with arguably maybe one photo. It's this map image you see on the screen now. And then we have, here's just two examples of the 9 10-year action objectives that were contained in this annual report. So these examples would match the objectives that you could have found in the Nonpoint source management plan that would have been current at the time. So you can see the objectives range from being really programmatic, like providing billing forms to contractors, to collaborative. The second one is stating that we're going to work closely with the Montana Watershed Coordination Council, that sort of thing. But the format of this annual report, to me, it's really just fulfilling that EPA deliverable. It's not really a resource geared towards a public audience, which is okay, but could be better. So we'll jump forward to the year 2010, a whole decade later. This is the cover page of that annual report. By this time, we were publishing these glossy magazine style annual reports, so it's gotten a little bit longer. It's 32 pages, but a lot of that extra space is filled up with photos, a lot of really beautiful photos. I think at this time we were putting these together in Microsoft Publisher, which is a pretty intuitive layout and design program that just comes with a regular Microsoft like Word and PowerPoint suite of applications. Publishers, yeah, it's pretty easy to use. Instead of 9 objectives, this annual report contained 39 action objectives. And again, I just have 2 examples on the screen. The first column are the objectives, and then the second column is where we're at in meeting those objectives. And to me, the objectives here, they're not really measurable. They're a little more descriptive, like increasing monitoring support and working with watershed groups. There's nothing really quantifiable to those objectives. Okay, we'll jump forward almost another decade to 2018. I'm jumping forward to this year because it's the first annual report published concurrently with our new Nonpoint source management plan that is active from 2017 to 2020. And also it's the first annual report that I made, no bias there. This, again, it's gotten a little bit longer, 40 pages this time, still really heavy emphasis on incorporating beautiful photos. By now we were using Adobe InDesign to compile these. It's not as intuitive of a program as Publisher, and it comes at an extra cost. but it is considered the industry standard for graphic design. Although I will say that most of us working in non-point source programs across the nation are probably not actually graphic designers. So I didn't find InDesign very intuitive to use, and it was pretty tedious because everything just needs to be lined up just right. And if you want to adjust one thing, then you have to realign everything else. But makes a slick magazine. Our objectives have changed a little bit. So again, we have a little bit more. We have 44 this time, and they're formatted differently. So kind of that first column about the partners, we have all of our objectives sorted by who the objective is targeted towards. So we all know that non-point source pollution is produced by everyone. It's everyone's responsibility to think about how they can reduce their non-point source pollution contributions. And so I think we've tried to make our objectives speak to that and have them be objectives that are implementable by different state or federal agencies or watershed groups that we work with. And then the measurable milestones, I'll point out now, are a lot more quantifiable. So we had a goal, for example, of 12 new or updated watershed restoration plans by 2022, which is the last year our non-point source management plan will be current. And then we've just listed out watersheds that helped us fulfill that goal. We'll move forward just one more year. 2019 is the last annual report that we published. This time it was 0 pages long, and that is because we created our annual report in ArcGIS online story map, which everyone has access to. Your agency probably has an Esri enterprise account, but everyone can just create their own free personal account if they want to and go right on ahead and make as many story maps as you want. So still a really heavy emphasis on photos, but using story map allows you to incorporate data as well. And then this example on the screen here, this is a little postcard that we made that just summarizes some facts and figures and highlights from the annual report. And then we have a tiny URL down here so that interested people could read more about our program. And the intent with these little postcards was that we could distribute them at conferences and stakeholder meetings like we have historically with those glossy magazine style reports. So we still wanted something physical to hand out, but it worked out really well for us this year having that online story map because there were no in-person meetings to distribute this type of resource at. Let's see. I'll go ahead and open the story map up here in a minute, but I'm just going to wrap up this slide. So like I said, we're still operating under our same 5-year non-point source management plan. So I have the same exact objective example on the screen now, and I'm just showing how we're continuing to add to the tally of that goal of 12 new or updated watershed restoration plans. All right, give me a moment while I open up the annual report. So I recommend if you make a story map, you give it a tiny URL. It's really easy to do, but you'll see the actual URL that hosts the story map is a string of numbers and letters that's impossible to memorize, so give it something simpler. And then here it is. Story map's quite intuitive to use. You essentially just like upload the photos you want on each slide and have really concise and clear text to go along with it. You can link to other web pages or documents in there. So the content of this annual report still really follows the same structure as our magazine style reports did. It's just a little more visually engaging, and you can, here's an example of the power of story maps. I mentioned you can incorporate data. So here we're highlighting some of those measurable milestones, and I'm hearkening back to that same example I've been using throughout. We're shooting to have 12 new or updated watershed restoration plans by 2022. So this map is showing watersheds where watershed restoration plans are complete or in progress. So story map makes it a little more engaging for the reader because they can click on things and zoom in. It's more engaging for you as the Nonpoint source program staff person because you can build and maintain these data sets. So I think an even better way to do this would be to, show on this map the time series of when these watershed restoration plans came online, and that would show us adding up to meeting that objective. So there's a lot more to the story map, and you're welcome to check it out on your own time. I will say too, if you make one of these, it's a good idea to take a screenshot of each slide, because if you're like Montana DEQ, we just had an Esri transition to a different enterprise account, and so a lot of our data behind these maps got broken. So you might run into maps that don't look complete on here. Here's an example. We're showing projects that we funded in 2019, and obviously the green dots aren't on the map here. So just take screenshots and PDF it, and then you have your content visually locked in. And then I'll also just point out on here, you probably saw, if you're not tracking your measurable milestone objectives in a spatial geodatabase format, you can always just upload an image of a map as well. So story map is super versatile. Okay, I'm gonna pop back into this. Okay, so I'll just wrap up this talk and reiterate my 2 take-home points I want you to remember, which is, first of all, I encourage everyone to test out reporting with story maps or any other public communication with story maps. There's a lot of perks with it, such as unlimited printing costs, or I guess no printing costs. Those glossy magazines I showed you cost about $8 per publication, and each year we would print about 100, and I don't think we ever distributed 100% of those. And you can see the viewership analytics of our annual report story map on the screen here, and we've already exceeded that viewership by an order of magnitude. And then it's also kind of neat too, you can see these spikes in our viewership coincide with the time frame that we released our call for 319 applications this year. Story maps are really quick to make, definitely a lot faster than working in InDesign was. And then, like I mentioned, it's really engaging for the agency to integrate tracking objectives into a geodatabase format, and then it's engaging for the reader. And then the last take-home point I would like you to consider is integrating those annual reports with the Nonpoint source management plan. And I know I mentioned that is a requirement of our deliverable to EPA, but I think it's actually really important because having those quantifiable, measurable objectives allows you to maintain momentum towards your goals if things like staff turnover or changes in upper management occur. Having those measurable milestones that you're reporting on each year also holds you accountable to your program and the public. And then, like I said, if you make those measurable milestones something that other entities or even individuals of the public can implement, then it just allows for more engagement with the program if you're able to highlight other people's successes like that. And then each year you publish the annual report. Consider it an opportunity to do some adaptive management of the Nonpoint source management plan. Like each year when we're going through our measurable milestones, there's inevitably a milestone that we're scratching our heads wondering why we're not tracking this, or like, why are we tracking this one? That kind of thing. So just is a good opportunity to steer the Nonpoint source program ship. So that's my talk, and I'm happy to talk to you more about it soon. Thank you.